Event is starting soon. Please take your seats. 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 In a world that is constantly evolving, where every decision shapes the destiny of nations, we find ourselves at a crossroads.
Europe saw yet more dramatic farmer protests on Monday.
June 9th marked a pivotal moment for the European Union.
I would like to congratulate Ursula von der Leyen.
J'ai décidé de vous redonner le choix.
On est dans un moment crucial dans l'histoire de notre pays.
And now it has arrived. Change begins now.
A moment that echoes the profound questions posed by Aldous Huxley's Brave New World.
12 more Democrats are calling for President Biden to drop out of the presidential race.
You think you just fell out of a coconut tree?
What does the future hold for our union?
Yeah, it probably is just like, we look at 100 years, okay, it can do the whole creative job. We're not always very aware of what skills are hard and easy.
In a world teetering between unity and division, progress and stagnation, innovation and tradition, the questions are more important than ever. Welcome to EU Influencer. Let the conversation begin.
And live from Cado Hotel, it's the EU Influencer 2024. Welcome, all of you. Welcome to the people in this room to the 8th edition of this event that brings together people who are looking at how the conversation is going to shift on the digital platforms that we all use. This is a really important moment. We have a new parliament, we have a new commission that's been proposed, and we have a very uncertain future. So we're going to put some key questions to panelists, to the online world, and to people in this audience. And we're going to try to find out what you need to know to be ready for 2025. So I first want to thank the amazing sponsors that have allowed us to do this. First of all, the Cado Hotel, which is hosting us. Thank you. Look at this wonderful, wonderful venue. The team from AVS, which is producing this phenomenal screen and all the kit that you see around you. Thank you so much. And some of the organizations that are supporting us, the Association World, we have Visit Brussels and the Best in Brussels guys. So thank you all for your support. Now, we're going to be asking a lot of questions, and what I want to do is to first turn to Irem, who is going to help us to connect the online world with the offline world. Irem is a Senior Account Director for ZN, and she is today our hyper moderator. So, Irem, what are you doing today? Please give her a round of applause.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be hyper-moderating the 8th edition of EU Influencer. First of all, I would like to also extend my welcome to all the people in the room that are watching us, and also all our online guests that have tuned into our live stream. I also want to welcome all our influencers, our clients, our ZN network to the room. We are so happy to have you here. So what does hypermoderation means? If you are an EU Influence veteran, you would know, because it's not the first time we are doing it. But for those of you that are coming for the first time or that need a refresher, basically, as Phil said, I will be helping carry some of the online conversations that's been happening on social media to the panel, and we will be connecting exactly the online world with the offline world as much as possible. So before we begin with the event, I actually also want to welcome and say hi to the hyper activation team at ZN that's bringing this online conversation to social media today. They will be taking quotes from the panels, they will be turning them into memes, into GIFs, into animations, and sharing everything online with you, for you to engage with us more during and after the event. And I would like to just connect with them and say hi.
Hi, we're the activation team at ZN, and we're ready to monitor the conversation live.
Keep sharing your thoughts online by using the hashtag EUinfluencer. See you online.
Bye.
Bye.
They're watching us. Okay, so first, we're going to start by asking a question to this audience because I want to get a sense of who you are in terms of social media. And my first simple question is, what's your favorite channel for EU conversations? So I'm first going to ask you, who is an X-avid user? Put up your hands if you use X as your primary channel. Wow, that's like a 10, 15%. Who is using LinkedIn as their primary channel? This is a LinkedIn crowd, I knew it. I already bet that. And who is using the clones, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads? John and a couple of others. And finally, who is using TikTok and Instagram and is young and funky? Well, there you go. Okay, so we have a mixed room. Very interesting. We asked the same question online. Irem, what did we hear?
Yes. So we've asked the same exact question online earlier this week, and we've got some answers. Funnily enough, on LinkedIn, people's preferred channel is LinkedIn, and on X, people's preferred channel is X. So not very surprising. But we've also had some conversation on this. So Sebastian Tarnowski has said that LinkedIn will probably matter the most in the EU bubble because of all the networking elements, while John Wirth called LinkedIn user experience a sodding shocker, and we will be hearing more from him very soon. But we also want to hear from you guys, what do you think? We've also seen your hands, but why are you sticking to the channels that you prefer the most? Please engage with us using hashtag EUinfluencer, tag ZN on your preferred social media channel, and I'll be monitoring all of them.
Thank you. And we really encourage you to join online. You'll see that there's already a lot of conversation on topics, and if you have burning questions, put them online. You'll continue the conversation, and of course, you can talk to the influencers during, after we've gone through our session. Now, we're going to start with the question of the future of content and what content will matter. So that is our first panel, which we will start with shortly. Now, before I introduce our wonderful panel, I spoke to Enrique Lasso, who is a TikTok journalist working for the Thomson Reuters Foundation, so an interesting combination of roles. He has 64,000 followers on TikTok, and I asked him, what do you think is the future of these platforms, and how do you see things evolving into next year? So this is what he had to say.
Based on what social media looks like today, I think we can identify 3 key trends that tell us a little bit, not everything, but at least a little bit of what social media will look like in the coming years. The first one to me is that vertical video is here to stay, whether we like it or not. So we might as well make it work for us. The second one is that after many years of many people relying on one specific platform, that age is over. Audiences are fragmented, and we need to learn to live with it. It's not going to be easy. We're at a time where we're figuring out how that affects our business models and how we can build sustainable organizations financially, dealing with that reality. But I think the sooner we accept it, that we cannot rely and we should not rely on one single platform anymore, the better the outcome is going to be for all of us. The third one is that audiences' trust is shifting and will shift even more towards individual creators and not towards brands. or organizations or institutions. That means that we, again, need to figure it out. We need to realize that we will have to work together. Organizations, institutions, newsrooms, they will have to work together with creators. Both sides will benefit, I think. I understand that it's scary. It changes the system we've lived in, but I think there's a lot of potential for both sides, and there's a big potential to connect with audiences and to rebuild trust in the system at a deeper level. So we should not be scared of experimenting with it.
Thank you for that. So very interesting comments. Now I want to introduce a panel of content creators, individual content creators, in fact. And I want to start with Sevim Atkas, who is a full-time employee of the European Commission, but in her spare time, she's an Instagram influencer with 28,000 followers. She talks about climate change, she talks about how to apply for a job at the Commission, and she talks about getting involved in your local activities. So she's been doing that, and we're going to find out more about her in a second. We also have Dermot Burke, and he is a TikTok content creator, but also teaches journalism for News Associates. So he has, again, a very interesting combined perspective. He has over 40,000 followers on TikTok, and he is talking about policy, politics, elections, and he's going to share more about his thoughts. And finally, we have James Cantor, who is an experienced journalist with 12 years of experience with the New York Times, International Herald Tribune, and he has now jumped ships and gone into podcasting. He runs and he founded and edits EU Screams. So please give a warm round of applause to the panel. Now, I want to start with a question for Sevim. And I think this is a question that many of you who work in organizations, companies, the Commission, ask yourself, how is it possible to combine a full-time job with this influencer? And what kind of skills do I need? So, Sevim, how do you manage, and what are your what are the skills that people need to be able to do that?
Hello, everyone, first of all. Thanks a lot, Phil. And great to be on this amazing panel, I have to say. How to combine work and this part-time influencer type of thing. I mean, first of all, not being a perfectionist helps to start off with the mindset. Experimenting, being open to fail and try different methods, see what you like, see what you don't like. So really this experimenting, open to fail, non-perfectionist mindset. And second, I mean, you have to imagine it's the work that I do in the evenings or during my lunch break, where I skip my lunch break and then do, like, I don't know, post or prepare it, or on the weekends. And what makes it work for me is that I don't see it as a job, but more a passion project. And I love interacting with the community and sharing the knowledge truly. And it's a very special community that's very prone to taking action as well. That's the one thing that I find very valuable and amazing about my community, where people are just keen to read all this super knowledgeable information, or like very information-dense information, apply to the things that I'm sharing, like look more into it or follow the courses that I'm sharing. I think it's beautiful to be able to mobilize a group of people through a platform like this.
Fantastic. And can you tell us a bit about, what kind of content is really working? You have a younger audience than typical EU associations. What content are they engaging with, and what can this audience perhaps learn from this?
I mean, essentially, you can see me as a multiplier of the information that Commission press releases put out there already. So I just take them and summarize them as 4 takeaways about this new policy that has been just launched, or news in general like this. What makes it work and what makes people engage a lot with it, I think, there's one little step that I always do in my posting process, and that is to think, how can this post be useful to them? So taking the Draghi report as an example, I summarized it recently about the main takeaways, and I was like, okay, why should people look into it? And I'm like, why do I look into it? Because I want to have I want to be the smarty pants who knows like a couple of recommendations that Draghi put in this super important report that's really relevant for the EU. So it's good for your job. Have a look. You can, contribute in the conversations in your team. Like, look at the section of your sector, especially. Like, how can this really bring them as a person forward? Because in the end, it's about providing useful input or providing useful information that's bringing the person from the reader side, the audience side, a step ahead. So that's what I'm focusing on, and that's what I'm trying to do with the posts. So is it in the knowledge that I'm sharing about the EU policies? Is it in the career advancement tips? But a lot of the content that I share about is struggles that I go through and how I managed, and then seeking for more information or seeking for input from the community regarding that. Because in the end, we as young professionals are going through exactly the same struggles, so why not openly talk about it and then share best practices that we came across?
Fantastic. So bring the audience one step ahead. I like that. Dermot, you started a TikTok channel from a journalistic perspective. So tell us a bit about why did you choose TikTok and how's it going so far?
So actually, it's kind of the opposite. I started a TikTok channel because I was really passionate about politics, and then went, I actually would love to do this as a career, and then quit my job and went and trained as a journalist. So I kind of did it the other way around. The reason I did it was I'd always wanted to create content, and then someone said to me, I was going to start a YouTube channel, and someone said to me, that's an absolutely terrible idea. Start a TikTok account. And at the time, it was 2020, I had the idea that to be a TikToker, TikTok was the place that teenagers did silly dances, right? Which I realize now is similar to having the idea back, 10, 15 years ago, that YouTube is a place where people watch funny cat videos. Genuinely, I think the population at large, maybe up until a year or two ago, had a very restricted idea of what that platform was. I have found that actually it's a place where younger people in particular love to consume the news. They love to consume stories. And the issue that we have within journalism is, unfortunately, a lot of younger people aren't going to the platforms that they used to go to. And I think a lot of editors are starting to catch on. We need to go onto this TikTok thing. I think a lot of journalists, particularly those who have really made their name with the written word and are really, really good at doing that, are reticent to make that jump. You've mentioned my teaching. In my teaching, one of the number one things we're doing is we are teaching young journalists, yes, you need to be able to write. Yes, you need to be able to, find a story. Those things are really important, and I want to flag that. But you also need to know how to make a TikTok. You also it needs to be the case that you can go into a job with any company, whether it be the biggest paper in the nation, or it can be some local paper that is just like, we need a new way to reach out to people. So I think it's changing. I think especially the changes that journalists' favorite platform, Twitter, or X, or X formerly known as Twitter, to use its official name. The changes that are happening there, I think, has expedited that process. But we still need to change some mindsets around that.
Excellent. So moving to a journalist, or are you still a journalist? Or are you now a content creator, an influencer, or a podcaster? James crossed over in those two worlds. So why did you make the change? And what are your thoughts when you're hearing that you should be TikToking?
So, Phil, first of all, the ZN influencer event has kind of become part of my Brussels story. So, thanks for the invitation, and thanks for doing this. And great panel. Yes, when I was listening to Dermot, I was thinking I need to hire this guy. So so that gives you an indication, I think, of how fast media is moving. We have to think, I think, a little bit beyond the website, right? And where are we going to be publishing in the future? You asked this question, journalist, content creator, or influencer. And the thing is that I am all three. I am a journalist first and foremost. I mean, facts, narrative is important, storytelling is important, but facts are sacred. And that very much relates to the work that I've done over the years with the IHT, with the New York Times, and even going back to my time in Southeast Asia. And am I a content creator? Well, yes, absolutely. There's still this idea that audio and podcast are very easy because, yeah, indeed, audio files are cheap and, in theory, you can distribute them very cheaply. But some of my episodes, I spend hundreds of hours on them, hundreds of hours. And that's content creation. There's nothing easy about that. And sometimes people hear the word content creator and they're like, oh, yeah, that's just a millennial thing. It's hard work. And you asked if I'm an influencer. Well, I hope so. I think that one way of addressing that is to say that to some degree journalists have always been influencers. And the thing is, how do you measure that? Where is that happening? In terms of podcasts, it's becoming a very sort of common way of making waves. And I think that if I look to at least one of the episodes that we've done with Ylva Johansson, who is the outgoing Home Affairs Commissioner, one example of being an influencer, at least in that world, is that the Süddeutsche Zeitung picked up our conversation with her almost word for word, because she revealed the fact, and here we get to the emotional component of podcast, that she had a Korean stepsister who came into Europe at a time when migration was not quite the problem in people's minds that it is today. So that's her brief, migration, and so that became the kind of, the thing that stuck in people's minds.
Fantastic. Now I want to finish with Sevim. You want to give a shout out. You're preparing a training and you're also recruiting people. So maybe this is your opportunity to give a quick shout out to see if anyone online or in the room is interested.
Yes, exactly. But I have to say I got a couple of people already sending me emails to that, but shout out. So one dream of mine has always been to see more people emerging doing exactly the same thing for their own sectors or for the same sector as well. Because in the end, it's all about creating different personas that the audience can relate to. And the more people start communicating online about EU topics, the more people it will reach at the same time, especially on Instagram. I see a couple of influencers here and they're emerging and they're present here as well, which I'm very happy about. But I would love to see it more happening. So I finally am putting this thought, this dream into practice of creating an EU influencer masterclass. It's going to happen in collaboration with, okay, I'm not going to announce that yet. Follow me on Instagram to find out who I'm going to collaborate with. But I'm also going to develop an online course about it to just share my best practices, my tools, resources, etc., for more people to be able to do it. So I was looking for videographers and podcast editors. I did a quick shout out on Instagram already, and so many people applied and were so curious, and I'm grateful. But in case you're very interested, you can talk up to me afterwards as well.
So please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much for your insights, and continue the conversation online and follow them all online. And now we're going to move to our second panel, which is all about the impact of social media on democracy. Is it going to destroy democracy? Are we going to see a brave new EU? Okay, so earlier I actually spoke to our previous top-ranking EU influencer from last year, Dave Keating, and he, you can come back. Well, you can stay here. So James is joining this panel as well. So I asked Dave Keating, in the context of the conversation around X, a lot of people are profoundly disturbed by X, especially in this city. Brazil just banned X, and there are discussions about what might happen in Europe. So I asked him whether he thought an X ban was likely in Europe, and this is what he had to say.
I don't see that happening. I think that would be quite overstep by the Commission. However, I think the UK is an interesting one to watch because Elon Musk's insistence that the UK is about to go to civil war has really riled people in the UK, particularly politicians. And I think also X as a platform, its role in the racist riots that we saw across England this summer as also really making people quite wary of the platform. So I think if we were going to see an X ban anywhere, it might be the UK. But the difficulty with that is, I mean, for all the people I know in the UK who use Twitter, that would really cut them off from like the entire political debate happening in Europe and in America. And I imagine people would just go to use VPNs and access it anyway. So, I mean, you would really have to have it coming from the very top. It would have to come from Brussels and Washington at the same time for it to actually have an effect of removing the platform from its important role in public life. Otherwise, people are just going to use VPNs.
So I'm going to introduce the panel, and then we're going to have a quick check-in to an online conversation. So you know James, he was just introduced. John is an EU influencer who's a specialist in transportation and trains, but he's also a vocal critic of X, advocating that people should leave the platform, and a heavy user of Mastodon. And we have Teresa Fallon, who is the director and founder of CREAS, which is a specialist organization on issues relating to Russia, China, Ukraine, and a lot of geopolitics. And she frequently engages with Chinese trolls on pretty contentious issues. So please welcome our panel with a round of applause. Now, we started this conversation online a couple of days ago. It already got pretty heated. I think John was bringing a bit of a Twitter vibe to LinkedIn, which was kind of strange. So, Irem, what happened online around this topic of X and bans and democracy?
Well, this topic has generated a lot of engagement online already. Following Breton's resignation letter on X, we've seen Gerardo Fortuna, who said that this incident is quite telling that EU is still very addicted to this platform, to which Jean-Mara Sisti replied saying that he doesn't see the platform going anywhere anytime soon, and also said that it's probably not the right platform for trade associations to do their communications on. So we will be discussing more about this later, but also our panelist John Worth has joined the conversation, saying that EU commissioners that are still on X are followers and not leaders.
And cowards.
And there are many that strongly recommend that EU officials should be off X, and they should not be following a platform that's powered by a modern-day fascist, as James Cantor called it, while the others say that there are no worthy alternatives, so that's why a lot of people are still sticking to the platform. Breaking news, however, in the meantime, that while we were just introducing this panel, apparently we have been blocked on X as Zedan. So it's very interesting. We are now blocked to share content on X. For the remaining of the debate and the event, we will be sharing most of our content on LinkedIn and Instagram. But I think it's a very, very interesting timing, and it's very interesting to hear from our panelists about this incident and what they think about this.
Well, we have to check if he's banning any individuals, because we can keep the conversation going using our own handles at PVice. But it's exciting to know that Elon Musk is watching and he's disturbed by this conversation. So there goes his free speech absolutist. Yeah, you can say that again. All right. So the question that I wanted to put to John after launching into that discussion online is, do you think the EU should think about banning Twitter or even TikTok? And if not, what is the solution? Because for journalists, they have to be on the platform to get the latest news. So how do you answer that question?
So I'm actually opposed to bans of both X and TikTok in the European Union. We have a legal framework for addressing concerns with those platforms, notably the Digital Services Act and the responsibilities for very large online platforms. TikTok so far has responded positively to suggestions that have come from the European Commission and has indeed changed some of its practices. X so far has essentially dithered. We may reach the situation where there is a clear contravention of the Digital Services Act by X, and then at that point we may at some point reach the stage where something akin to a ban may be contemplated at some point long in the future. But there are many steps to get to before we get there. Very important, however, instead, is the behavior of individuals. If you are a commissioner or a member of the European Parliament, should you be using that platform run by Elon Musk based on the politics that that man holds and the arbitrary behavior, an example of which we've just had this evening? The answer clearly is no. He is a modern-day fascist. You should get off his platform. Now, for Gerardo Fortuna, he's a journalist as to follow politicians. I haven't got a problem with him. I've got a problem with the politicians. If Thierry Breton has said that on LinkedIn, he said it on Mastodon, on Blue Sky, in a press release, however the hell he wanted to say it, we would still all know about it, even if he hadn't said it on X. So it's just laziness, the assumption that actually it has to say it on X in order for journalists to follow. And that's my point, ultimately. Those people who should be the leading characters in this town, they could facilitate that move. I don't have the hope that a journalist, really, whose job it is to report on the European Union, could begin to make that change. I would hope that some in the next European Commission, it will be the first European Commission for the last decade where we might not have every single European commissioner present on Twitter X.
Right, so actually we took a look at what the MEPs, the new MEPs from this new parliament had been doing, and we compared their social profile. So we can show you there, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on what you see, the MEPs are in majority on X, so you have 611 who've chosen to go on X, followed by Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, interestingly, and some on LinkedIn. So it kind of seems to establish the fact that X is still the go-to platform and people haven't decided to make that move. Now, I want to go to you, Teresa, because you're a heavy user of X. So what are your thoughts on what John just said, and how do you use X as a tool in your work?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Philip. It's wonderful to be here, and what a great crowd we have tonight. And I'm surprised we're being shadow banned, or banned actually,
we'll find out at the end
let's give him another name. Let's call him Y, okay? But let's, I think in economics we call it path dependency. So once you start using something, you kind of stay on the same path. And I think these things are rather sticky. So I understand people are disgruntled with Elon Musk's behavior. We have a clear example right here. I use it because I just came back late last night from a conference in Dublin, and so many people came up to me and were like, oh, it's so nice to meet you. I know you from Twitter. And I still call it Twitter, sorry, because it's part of path dependency too. And it's lovely because it's so wonderful to be able to connect with people, and I wouldn't want to start all over again. So that's part of the path dependency of it. And I really do enjoy, when I was young, in the olden days, we clipped articles. So Twitter's, to my mind, modern day clipping. But it's also, I use it, I don't ever engage with trolls. That's the thing, I don't do it. But it's a barometer for me because I tweet a lot on China and Russia and Ukrainian related issues. And I can see what really is annoying Chinese trolls. We call them the 50-cent army because Twitter technically is not banned in China, but no one can use it in China. So that's a very delicate term of use there. But I can see what turns on the tap for the trolls. Certain subjects I can see is really high in their profile. And also, the Chinese also use the term borrowing a boat. So they use other people who will be on Twitter to kind of promote positive Chinese narratives. And the Financial Times did an excellent article about this and highlighted all of these influencers, so-called Chinese influencers on Twitter, and how they talk about how great it is in Xinjiang, where we see there are Uyghur camps and things like this. So they try to change the narrative. I'm sure they're paid money in China for doing that. Maybe that's the trade-off for them to live in China. But I think it's important to just see where their reach is. And I guess I really do annoy them because I never engage with them. So other people in my feed will engage with them and kind of try to fight off the trolls. But for me, it's not worth my time. And I think why would you let yourself get annoyed and all hot under the collar? That's what their job is. And sometimes they'll even say, why do you never engage with us? And I thought, well, I'm not, stupid. I wasn't born yesterday. That's not my job. Why should I give someone who follows 0 people and has only 5 followers my time?
Absolutely. Now, I just want to go back to you, John, before I go to James. Now, John, you're a kind of quite a passionate advocate of Mastodon. Enrique talked about using different channels. I think this is one of the big takeaways this year, is that you can't depend on a single channel because you just don't know what's going to happen next. Elon just woke up this morning and said, let's ban everything. So the point is, you need to think across different platforms. You've had some success in Mastodon. Can you tell us very briefly how that has gone so far?
So Mastodon for me works very well because I'm based in Germany and it's a German tool originally. So in the German language and sustainable transport environment, it works really well. For certain other things, it doesn't work well at all. So talking about European Union politics or the things I used to do, Brexit, the community is not there. So actually, a lot of my EU conversation is on another network, is on Blue Sky. So basically, I'm now dividing some types of content onto different types of networks. And so by actually replacing Twitter with 2 tools, part Mastodon and part Blue Sky, I've actually found a reasonable way forward. The really amazing thing on Mastodon is the quality of the apps which are available. They're better than anything that's ever been available to access Twitter. So the user experience by now is actually quite smooth. But ultimately, the quality of a good social network is the people that are there, and for European Union politics discussion, unfortunately, they're not really there. Maybe on Blue Sky they may eventually get there. But ultimately, experiment why these tools are fresh, right? I've managed to build in less than 12 months, 7,500 following on Blue Sky and 13,000 on Mastodon. It's not the reach I used to have on Twitter, but the quality of the conversations is better. So I'm starting to get somewhere interesting. Now, for every passing day that you don't try to experiment with an alternative, it will get harder and harder to start to build an audience on those platforms.
Right. So, James, from a journalist, content creator, podcaster perspective, what are your thoughts on using multiple channels and the kind of danger that these channels represent to democracy?
Yeah, it's very interesting, John saying what he said at the end there, which is don't hesitate, right? Because it's just going to take you longer to build up your following. It's also very, very interesting, I thought, that vote that was held at the beginning, that not a lot of you in the room were plumping for X anymore. So in terms of Elon Musk's politics, I think it's really starting to filter through that the guy who controls this network, who wants to get Donald Trump reelected to the White House, which would be very, very dangerous for the planet, that is kind of hitting home. I mean, for me personally, every time I post on X, which I still do occasionally, I get a tsunami of hate from my friends in the United States, where Trump could come to power. So you see, you were interesting. You were talking about China, talking about Germany. Well, in the United States, where I still have a friendship base because I went to college there, yes, I get a lot of blowback. Now, what also really interests me about this conversation is who has purchase on Elon Musk? What can be done about his platform? And I think you're right to shake your head, John, because I mean, not very much on the individual level. Lord only knows what the Chinese might get up to with rival platforms like this someday. What about the DSA and the DMA and all the tools that we have in Brussels? Well, actually, Thierry Breton, who was going to be the most enthusiastic user of the DSA against Elon Musk, he has just been defenestrated by Ursula von der Leyen. So, I don't know where that will go. For me, if I may, perhaps the most interesting approach is that of an organization in the United States called Media Matters and another organization, which is British and American, called the Center for Countering Digital Hate. The guy who leads the CCDH is a guy called Imran Ahmed. He's a very effective campaigner against online hate. He was on a podcast, on my podcast, I think it's episode 104, and he's brilliant. He talks about how not only was he sued by Elon Musk and how he was going to win, and he now has won that lawsuit. But what he did to get Elon Musk to come down on him on that lawsuit and to bring that lawsuit. And that was to go to airlines, to go to food companies, to go to all the advertisers and say, hey, do you want your advert for that trip to Acapulco to be against this white supremacist post, or this neo-Nazi post, or this pro-Putin post? And that proved very effective. A lot of the advertisers left, and Elon Musk has, at least in terms of the revenue stream for X, has felt the pain. So I find that absolutely fascinating, because as an individual, we can't really do anything.
Except leave.
Except leave, but even then we sort of feel, well, we have our own networks, do we really want to jeopardize those? So I think it's very interesting to support those people out there in civil society who are, bringing very creative solutions, if I can put it that way, to this issue.
Teresa wants to jump in.
We should also remember, I mean, this is Brussels, where we have the Brussels effect and GDPR. LinkedIn is being used to harvest information for AI, but it's not happening in Europe. So this is a really positive development. And I think Brussels does have a role to play in trying to moderate these things or to legislate new behaviors. And the other thing is the 3 E's: educate, educate, educate. This will just be recreated somewhere else and not owned by Elon Musk. So the problem is we have a society of distraction. People's attention spans are quickly shrinking. Remember, sadly, when, and I'm a nonpartisan think tank, when Trump was shot, everyone's like, he put his arm up and said, fight, he's gonna be elected, that's it. People have forgot about that already. And after the debate with Kamala Harris, everyone's like, oh my gosh, she's gonna win, she did so well. And now people have forgotten about that. So the attention span, it's just dramatically shrinking. And what trends on these social media actually can be dead by next week. So it's really hard to predict what will happen and how people will vote. And I know that the theme of all of this is democracy, but instead of playing whack-a-mole and how to moderate these things, another alternative we have to put more effort in is how to educate young people to understand what the difference is between, I even ask my own children, where is this coming from? Where is the source of this? And we've seen a big change from flooding the space with disinformation, misinformation. For example, the Russians are actually putting their money in the US, asking influencers to create films for their disinformation channels. So it's got local US content. And I think unless we really have, in order to have a democracy, you must have an educated populace. So people who follow down these rabbit holes of QAnon and believe, Haitians are eating cats and dogs, or I don't know, Taylor Swift's having an affair with an alien. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we're going to see something like that soon, I imagine. So we have to put some funds, or even force these organizations to create more intelligent users, and that's the only way is through education.
Okay, so John, do you want to jump in very, very briefly, because I need to
very quickly. And this is the reason why I also didn't leave Twitter and went to Threads, because that's run by Mark Zuckerberg, right? Centralized commercial social networks are always going to be in danger of having a takeover by Elon Musk problem. Both Mastodon and Blue Sky are insulated against that danger because you can run your own server, run your own instance on those networks. So as a governmental institution, if you want to do emergency communication on a network like that, what we've done for a decade, and I was responsible for this, I was an advocate for Twitter for a very, very long time, should governmental institutions be putting their communications efforts onto a commercial platform? No, that's a fundamental choice by governmental institutions, which has been done wrong for a decade. So as well as education, which I don't disagree with, actually use networks which are insulated by their very design from a takeover by someone like Elon Musk. And at the moment, Mastodon and Blue Sky are two networks which at least have that guarantee.
Indeed, and if I could just add, federated networks, and it's a nerdy word, but get used to it, federated networks and portability of your followership.
Yeah,
totally.
No, I agree, and actually, that's the technology behind some of these new platforms, which allows you to move from one platform to the other with your followers. It's not taken off fully yet, but that's the question that we discussed quite heavily last time. Now, last year we were saying, X is almost dead, but it has been surprisingly resilient, and it still is the hub of the conversation. Now, when we meet again next year, will that still be the case, or will we all be on LinkedIn having a great time, or on Mastodon? Sorry, John doesn't like LinkedIn. But please thank the panel for these amazing comments, and continue the conversation online. On LinkedIn, I guess. But you can also find us on Mastodon, on Threads, on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. So you can find us everywhere else. So now let's move to our third and final panel. We are going to talk about trends, hype, and AI, something that is been a major conversation that started in earnest last year. And before introducing the panel, I asked the question to Sebastian Rodriguez, who is the founder of the Campaign Playbook, about how he uses AI and how communicators and others should think about using it. And this is what he had to say.
I think not in digital communication, but it's so revolutionary that it's going to impact all our lives. For example, as I was coming here, I was using my AI voice assistant whilst I was driving to prepare for this video. And I use it to try help find my true voice, but also to be able to say things in a more concise way and to get this voice assistant's view on different versions that I had of this video. In the end, what I'm saying is it still comes from me. It has my voice, it has my point of view. I use this tool to help me become more productive. And I think it is the same for our profession. Right now, narrow AI, generative AI, is gonna help us become more productive, and it's not gonna replace our jobs. The other day I was delivering a workshop for a trade association, and some of the most senior professionals were disappointed about some of the responses that these systems usually give them. And of course, these systems are not here to replace the experience of someone who has 10 years of lobbying experience or of communications experience, but it can help you save an insane amount of hours if you know how to use them right. And you can think that everyone who is joining as an intern, as a junior professional in Brussels this year in September, they already know how to use these tools. Most of them will know how to use them in a smart way. And imagine where these people are going to be in 5-6 years. So really the risk for professionals and for digital comms professionals is not so much the technology itself, but the people who are already using this technology and who will be immensely more productive than they are today.
Fantastic. So we have a very exciting panel. In the center of this panel, we have Chloe Willards, who is an author, a digital marketing expert, a teacher, and much, much more. Jesus Azogue is the COO of Zeren. He's a creative genius. He loves technology. He has robots. You can go and say hi to Pepper later on. And he is an avid user of AI. And Vince describes himself as a void walker. I don't really know what that means. But he's also an AI user in a company that's creating breakthrough technology using AI. So I'm going to come to them in just 1 second. But first, Irem, you have a question.
I have a question and an announcement to make because you're back on X.
Yay!
It's a whirlwind of emotions and news. I think Musk didn't realize what he was dealing with. A lot of you guys have tweeted about this. Well, posted about this, I guess. So they decided to bring us back. I don't know what's happening.
Fake news.
Let's see if we will continue on that channel, but we will be still monitoring your comments on both X and LinkedIn and other platforms. But before we go to our panel and leave the room to them, I want to ask you guys in the room, show of hands, please, of people that use AI on a day-to-day basis and love it. Quite a lot of you. Great. How about those that tiptoe into it, use it from time to time, but still a bit unsure? Okay, some. And who here has never used AI yet? Two people. Wow, okay.
The resistance.
All right. So we've also asked this question online before coming here, and we've got a striking 83% of our voters who said that they use AI on a regular basis and they love it. I think echoing what we are hearing now in the room, it's also very interesting to see the results compared to last year, because we had asked the same very question last year in our EU Influencer event, and the percentages at that point was very, very low. I think people were still trying to get their head around it. Clearly, we see today that AI is here to stay. More people are embracing it, and people are clearly loving it. So now, with that, I will leave the floor to our panel to discuss more about it.
Thank you. So please give them a warm round of applause. And since we talked before about truth and journalism, we're obviously going to fact check whether we were actually banned from Twitter X or not, or something just didn't refresh for 5 seconds. More on this soon, but let's just see what the story is. Sorry? We have screenshots. Yeah. Excellent. So we'll share those screenshots.
Didn't happen.
Okay. So I first want to start with Chloe. And Chloe is an author of several books on digital marketing communication. We've taught a course on digital marketing together. And she has been talking about trends for a long time. What I was really interested in is the fact that she actually wrote one of her books on creating content for AI using AI, which is kind of interesting. So I'd like to know how that went, and how do you use AI on your daily basis?
So I think we're living in a really interesting time. We're living through what I call a technological singularity, which is a moment of singularity where everything changes exponentially after that. And I think November 2022, we actually had such a singular moment, which was the launch of ChatGPT. And the previous time I had this, like my mind blown with technology, was in 2007, when a guy with mom jeans and a black turtleneck launched one more thing, the iPhone. Everything changed after the iPhone. Everything changed after ChatGPT. So I thought, this is not gonna last. This is too good to be true. So I very eagerly started using it from morning until evening. And I had already written 2 handbooks, one called Digital Marketing, the other one called Video Marketing. So I literally fed ChatGPT with the table of contents of my first 2 books, and then asked, what would the table of contents for a 3rd book about content marketing look like? And that's how I started writing it. So usually when I write a handbook, it takes me 6 horrible months. And now it took me 3 weeks. 3 weeks to complete a handbook. So it's still around. It's changed everything. And what I do today, I still use it. I use 3 tools now, interchangeably. So I use Claude, which is actually pretty good. Claude by Anthropic, rings a bell. Gemini by Google, and then ChatGPT. And whenever I need to have something text-based done, I do like Hunger Games. I give the same prompt to all 3 of them and may the best one win. And then I pick the best one and I think, no, it's not good enough. It's missing something. And then I use that in a new prompt and do it all over again until I'm happy with the result. And that is basically the most important thing that I teach my students, is that have a look at that image, have a look at that video, have a look at that text. Is it good enough? And the skill set now is not about being able to write or being able to take pictures. It's about being able to see whether a text is good, well written, does have the impact that you want it to have or not. And to me, it's a very romantic idea, romantic as in 19th century artists, a very romantic idea that a piece of media has more worth if someone has been bleeding and sweating over it for 2 months. It's either a good book or it's a bad book. And I don't care whether someone used AI for it or not.
I can imagine. I heard some heart attacks and palpitations in the room from the journalists and the writers who were thinking, oh my God, how could you say that? She should be arrested. But I want to ask you, what do you think will happen next when all this content is created by ChatGPT and others, and we don't even know what's created by humans anymore? Are you concerned about that?
Cory Doctorow, maybe some of you know him, he's a prolific journalist writer, a year and a half ago launched the term enshittification. I like it a lot. So he predicted that the internet would turn into shit, really, because it's now so easy to produce a lot of content for websites and for social media that it also happens. And then later, earlier this month, there's a Twitter account called Facebook AI Slop, S-L-O-P. And particularly on Facebook, there's a lot of crappy content out there. There's one that I will never forget. It's called Shrimp Jesus. I'm not sure if you ever Shrimp Jesus. Wow, it's extra. And why are these things being produced? They're being produced by random people in Malaysia or Pakistan. They're actually engagement farming. So what they do is they rack up followers and have a high engagement rate, and then they edit the original post. So they delete Jesus, shrimp Jesus, and then replace it with, I'm guessing, Russian or Chinese propaganda, or conspiracy theories, or some scam. So the prediction is that by 2026, 80% of the internet and social media will be enshittified AI slop. So that's in 2 years. And we will have bots talking to bots.
Okay, so that's a brave new EU, I guess. So turning into the shorter term, which is now, Jesus, you're an avid user of AI for very practical purposes. So tell us a little about what do you do with AI and how does it serve a practical purpose for you?
I'm amazed to see how I'm amazed to see how many people here are using it, and I'm very glad to see that, because actually it's something that from the beginning entered in my veins. It's something very easy that the more that you use, the more that you're willing to use that. Basically, there are in 3 areas that actually I'm using most, or that I would like to highlight. It's true that there is the creation of content. Okay, nice image, quick image done, and all that text and all that, okay, great. But the first thing that I like it to use it a lot is to reorganize ideas. Because for me, it's sometimes difficult. In the past, I was making like graphics and all that. But now what I do is that I start putting on ChatGPT, in this case, all the ideas or concepts that I'm having, all the material that I'm receiving, and then from there, it's organized. And then it goes to the second part, because all those ideas that I put there then permits me to create what is a skeleton, a first element. It's helped me a lot to fight against the blank page or the blank canvas. Many times I'm saying, how could be an image about this? I remember in the past, for example, when I was starting as I was using Google Image to get inspiration and to look at there to see, okay, where could we go in terms of design and all that. Now with ChatGPT, it's like, okay, how could be that an image like this? How could be like that? Or how could I structure, for example, the script of a video like the one we saw at the beginning? That helps then afterwards to start creating over it, because for now, I'm not creating the work and then it's completely done by AI, but I like to use it as a starting point or as a dialogue, because that is the third one, is the fact that now it remembers you, it knows you. The more you use it, the more it knows about what you like, how you like to do things, and what I'm doing is putting things there. Like, I like this, I had this idea, and then I'm coming back sometimes to that, and then creating the skeleton from where I'm starting to work. So for me, it's been very useful for these kind of things. Yeah.
So as an individual, and I think that's a lot of you have shared the experience that you have as individuals using AI. Now, Vince has actually worked with a company on implementing AI for the company to work on its products and on its own way of working. So Vince, tell us a little about what are the big challenges and the successes that you've seen in an organization using AI?
Yeah, but let me first reveal a secret. The name Voigtwalker comes from the fact my dad is a captain, my granddad is a captain. I went to maritime school for a week, and then I realized it's not my thing, so I turned into a digital captain. And that's why what I do is guiding people, brands, through the subcultures the algorithms and the content of our internet society. Another embarrassing fact is that I wrote an article when I was a young journalist called "I think Elon Musk is the new Jesus," because I thought he was going to bring us to Mars. And then I realized everything these tech bros tell us need to be taken with a grain of salt, even with AI. Now, many people ask me, is AI like the metaverse and NFTs? No, NFTs and the metaverse were solutions looking for a problem. AI is a civilizational technology that is challenging like some fundamental notions about culture and human creativity. And what I do, and the company is called Loop Earplugs, one of the fastest growing companies. Many people say like, bro, they're developing earplugs. Why do they need AI? Well, Loop removes the noise from the world, and AI can help unburden people. And my task at Loop is implementing AI in a way it augments people instead of replacing them. Because we all love AI and it's making us more efficient. In fact, our founder said, if people use AI in the right way and become more efficient, they get 1 day off per week. Nice. But then if you think deeper, you ask yourself, what does efficiency mean? For you, removing this task or outsourcing it to AI may be good, but for other people, it might not. And I think that is like the biggest challenge. Loop Earplugs, we have like a subscription to GPT Enterprise, 300 people having a ChatGPT account. Many people are embracing it, but now, because I think Loop Earplugs, you have the EU bubble, and on the other side, on that event horizon, that's where I'm at. Like really looking at how we can implement AI on a personal level and a team level. And there we see that people are using AI, but large language models, the one thing I want you all to remember is large language models will always hallucinate. Never trust an AI to tell you facts. Yes, they can provide sources, but these large language models, what are they? They are prediction machines. When you're given a prompt, they will try to predict the most likely next work. So if you take that into account, it changes the entire conversation. Now, apart from just large language models, we've also developed a tool trained on our own images to replace stock imagery. We still continue to invest in brand campaigns in human editing, but to give you a small secret, Loop spends around 400,000 euros per month on content creation. Inflation, we have to reduce cost, and AI can help there. And we're a very healthy company, but the more you introduce AI and the more you talk about how amazing it is, I'm talking from a personal level. I went to art school when I was 16, and my teacher said, Vincent, you're a very nice guy, but you can't draw. And I can't draw. I tried it, I can't do it. Thanks to Midjourney, text to image, I've been able to express ideas that have been in my head for over 20 years. It's been life-changing. So for me, AI is very, very personal. But when I talk to the designers, the art directors, creative people, people who thought AI will never replace us. Many people thought that creativity was something uniquely human. Creative people, they have tattoos on their hands. They live in Antwerp. They have like a MacBook Air and they drink wines. That's the cliche that inhabits like the creative industry. And then generative AI arrived on the scene. ChatGPT replaced a lot of copywriters almost overnight. If you look at platforms like Fiverr, where you can buy a logo or a text for €5, outsourced to India, Sri Lanka, it's been disrupted overnight. And many people thought here in Belgium, in Europe, we are safe. But now we are seeing the effects of generative AI on a lot of these creative professions. And my task at Loop and my mission, I think, in life is accelerating, but thoughtfully. With AI, we need to accelerate, we need to speed run through that algorithm, but we also need to learn how to curate. And to close off, I was also a teacher at Thomas More in Mechelen, and many parents ask me, what the hell should my kids learn? Which school do they need to study, machine learning or AI? And I say always, the biggest superpower in the age of AI is your frame of reference. The more you go to museums, the more you read, the more you fall in love, the more you get heard, the more conversations you have, the richer your creative soul becomes. And the richer your creative soul becomes, the more connections you can make, and also the more connections an AI can connect through you. Everything you need to learn about prompting ChatGPT, I can teach you over a wine in 5 minutes. But to get the most out of it, you need to build that intuition. You need to challenge a large language model, but also enrich your creative frame of reference.
Definitely food for thought. So thank you very much for the panel. Thank you so much. And As I said, the conversation continues online. Thank you. Now over to you, Iram.
We've almost come to the moment you've all been waiting for. We will be revealing the winners of EU Influencer 2024. But before we do that, I would like to invite my colleague Marcela to the stage to tell you a bit more about the methodology of this year's ranking. And while she's coming on stage, I would also like to extend a warm round of applause to Marcela and the team for pulling this event together. They worked tirelessly to make this event happen, and I hope you are all enjoying it as much as we are.
Thanks a lot, Iram. Testing? Yes. Thanks a lot, and thanks again to the amazing Cardo and also to AVS for hosting us, for making this event possible. We couldn't have done it without you. Now, before we go into the rankings, I just wanted to give you a quick overview of the methodology that we have this year, which is a little bit different from previous years. And that's because we saw that last year, for instance, Mastodon and Blue Sky were making waves, but they didn't really cut the chase this year. Sorry for the hardcore Mastodon and Blue Sky fans. Instead, we focus more on well-established networks like X, LinkedIn, Instagram. We also did some analysis on some of the rising platforms like Threads and TikTok. And eventually, we mapped out all of the influencers on all of these different platforms, looking at things like reach, engagement with MEPs, relevance to EU topics as well. And we also established a set of criteria for inclusion and exclusion. We grouped all of them into different categories, from digital to technology, healthcare, EU elections as well. That's, by the way, a new category. And we came up with the lists. And this year we have not one, but 3 rankings. Yeah? So we have we have the usual X ranking. We also have a LinkedIn ranking for all of the fanboys and fangirls out there. We also have honorable mentions on Threads, TikTok, and Instagram. And once we saw all of this data, we combined everything to create what we call the unified ranking, which we feel better reflects the influence of all of the winners across all of these different channels. Now, as we're speaking, I'm sure our amazing team and Hajer and Nico are publishing the methodology articles online. You can read about it on our website, also online. And if you have any questions, any comments, we can chat after the event, or we can continue the conversation online as well. And I just want to say that what we're doing here is, spotlighting the amazing work that all of the EU influencers are doing, putting out meaningful, valuable content day in and day out, and it's all about that. But to give you the highlights of the ranking, I can hand over to our Zani AI assistant. And just a side note, we heard the feedback last year that it was too long, so this time we've made it a bit short. It's more like a teaser video, like 2 minutes. All right, so over to you, Zani.
Hi guys, it's me, Zani, back again. Please, please don't fire me. I'll keep it short this year, I promise. Well, shorter than last year at least. Let's dive right in. Starting with X, where the big news is Itafe Martín Pérez, the European correspondent for Clarín and columnist for El País, who swooped into 3rd place as a newcomer. Looks like he's been busy. 4th and 5th places were snagged by former MEP Ignacy Guardans, another fresh face on our list, and Teresa Fallon, director at CREAS. Well done. We've got some real movers and shakers too. Lily Bayer, Europe Live blogger at The Guardian, has skyrocketed from 22nd place to 7th. Stanley Pignal, Brussels bureau chief at The Economist, comes in strong at 6th, and David Carretta, European correspondent for Radio Radicale and Il Foglio, secures 8th place after not even being on the list last time. Talk about a comeback. And drumroll, please. Our number 1 on X for 2024 is Eddie Wax, Politico Brussels Playbook co-author. Eddie, I'm sure you've got a playbook for that, huh? Congrats! Over on LinkedIn, we've got some serious talent too. Gerardo Fortuna from Euronews rounds out the top 10. Shada Islam, managing director at New Horizons Project, and Berta Herrero, director of the European Leadership Academy, are in the top 10. In 2nd place, we have Patrick Hansen, Senior Director for EU Strategy and Policy at Circle. Clearly, he's got LinkedIn strategy nailed down. And the big LinkedIn winner this year is Alberto Alemano, Professor of Law at HEC Paris and founder of The Good Lobby. They say those who can teach and influence, apparently. Now on Instagram, we've got shoutouts for Olivia Laurie, Communications Officer for Disability and Inclusion at the European Youth Forum, and Sevim Atlas, Policy Officer at the European Commission. Seems like they're keeping their followers well informed and inspired. Over on TikTok, Enrique Anarte Lazo, the Spanish journalist, is back on the list, along with Diarmuid Burke, a distinguished EU journalist based in London. And hey, Olivia Laurie shows up again on TikTok, proving she can do it all. And finally, on Threads, we're giving a nod to Kaj Embrum, Senior Advisor on Sustainability, and Steve Piers and Jean Quatremer, who are also making waves. That's it from me, for now. Until next time, folks, stay tuned and keep influencing.
So please give them a round of applause. And quite a few of these people are in the room today or online, so connect with them, talk to them, and ask for them to reveal their secrets to you. Now, let's look at the different categories that we have established to see who is driving the conversation in those specific topics. So we have people that are very special. Katie Owens, who is, I don't think she's here today, she's facing her own battle with cancer that she talked about, but she's a healthcare influencer, so please give her a warm round of applause. She's still out there communicating, and we wish her speedy recovery. We have Geraldine Wosner, who is in two categories, agri-food, energy, and sustainability. She is a rédactrice en chef at Le Point. We have Eddie Wax in the new category, the EU election, and he's running the playbook. This is a tradition. We often get the political playbook as a lead in the category. So congratulations, Eddie. Well done. He's right there. And then we have Andrew Stroline, who's also in the room in human rights and migration. Well done, Andrew. Umberto Gambini in technology and digital. Well done. And Alex Witzleben, who is the lead in travel and tourism. So congratulations. And finally, we have Sari Arrow Avrin, who leads both economy and trade and foreign affairs. So please give them a warm round of applause. And all of this and much, much more is online, so you have much longer rankings with the other names. And now we're going to end with the unified ranking we talked about, and we're going to unveil the top 10 who combine different channels that we have estimated have the most significant impact. It doesn't mean we don't like Mastodon and we don't like Blue Sky. We're just seeing that the current impact of these channels is the most impactful on these conversations. So let's look at the unified top ranking, and we start at number 10 with James Cantor. James, well done.
At number 9, we have Umberto Gambini, who is a partner at Forward Global.
At number 8, we have Samuel Stolten, a journalist at Bloomberg.
Next, coming in at number 7, we have Daniel Fiot, who is a professor at VUB.
And Dave Keating is still on our ranking. He actually hasn't quite left X, and he's active on his own channel, Substack, as well. He makes it to number 6. Well done.
Shara Islam, who we've seen in the previous categories, also is making in at number 5. She's the founder and managing director of New Horizons Project.
And at number 4, we have Alberto Alemano, who we've heard from before in different categories.
Now we come to our podium. At number 3, we have Gerardo Fortuna. We've heard about him before. He's a journalist at Euronews.
And I think he's in the room today. And at number 2, we have Pablo Perez, who is working at the Commission and is a team leader for the European Union Intellectual Property Office.
And the winner of our unified ranking is, drum roll please, Sari Arho Havren, who is a futurist and senior advisor at Business Finland. Congratulations to all the winners.
Yeah, and now we're getting to the end of this conversation, but of course it's the beginning of the networking, and there are a couple of things I wanted to say. The first is I want to say again, thank you to our host, the Cardo Hotel, for helping us to organize this and host this today. So thank you so much. Give them a round of applause. Thank you to the amazing team at AVS that did this production. Look at this screen, look at the transitions, the amazing team. And I think we can see what's happening behind the scenes. Do we have access behind the scenes? This is the people behind the curtain. This is the Wizard of Oz. They have massive screens. They're pressing a lot of buttons. It's amazing what they're doing. If you have a big event, you know who to talk to.
There we go.
And this is not pre-recorded. Jesus is in that room right now. Now, before we end, and I also want to thank again our supporters, the Association Worlds. Kai Troll is there. Thank you, Kai. The Best in Brussels with Mark Gober, and the Visit Brussels organization that can help you to find great venues for your events. Now, before we close, a couple of things. There will be some food served on the left in the networking room. There's also a VR experience because no, the metaverse is not dead. We're still playing with it, but who knows when it will take off again. And we also have robots that you can talk to, food, and
also
some
AI.
drink.
You can also experience AI outside with our creative team to get your amazing portraits done.
Yeah.
You'll be having some fun there.
Now,
hopefully.
I want to ask the EU influencers in the room, past and present, to stay for 2 minutes to take a quick picture on this wonderful stage with this amazing setup so we can have a really cool picture. And the ZN Network, please stick around as well. We'll do our picture after. But before we closed, because as you know, Zani, our AI, was under a lot of pressure. A lot of people didn't like her. So she came up with an idea, this is an agent, that she would create an anthem for this event. So take it away, made by AI, for AI, who knows?
From humble roots, a digital star, a swipe, a like, a heart, a scar, screens glow bright. Algorithms guide in this new world we're dreaming.